And may I invite Dr. Pritanjali Singh, Head of Department, the Department of Radiotherapy, All India Institute, Patna. Mrs. Pritanjali Singh, please. May I also invite Dr. Vijay Pratap Singh. He is the Managing Director, Savera Cancer and Multi-Specialty Hospital. Now, tumors around the hip. We have dedicated this session to Dr. Vivek Verma, who is orthopedic oncologist, and we're very proud that now we have also started to doing orthopedic oncology, and with the input of my brother-in-law, Dr. VP Singh, and team, Dr. Vivek Verma also comes, and we do lots of orthopedic oncology cases. So may I invite Dr. Vivek Verma to enlighten us actually on tumors around the hip. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of AMC committee to invite me for this talk. And this is a very interesting talk because we know that tumor is itself a rarity, and that too we are going to speak about a particular specific site that is around the hip joint. So there is no conflict of interest involved in this. And before I start my talk, I would say that when we deal with the tumor management, it is not just about our surgical technique or the skills in that, but it requires more of a basic approach when we deal with the tumor right from its diagnosis to the multimodality management. So in my talk, I have just kept this first slide to start a thought process, like when we see a lesion like this, should we fix it or should we resect it, and what should we do? So in my talk, I have dealt with the approach to abnormal lesion around the hip, a brief overview of the oncological principles involved, and how do we plan a resection for tumor around the hip joint. So like in this case, this was done somewhere else and somebody had put a nail, and that time the biopsy was sent, which turned out to be a sarcoma, and later on it caused entire contamination and the patient had to undergo a hip disarticulation. So it's not was a hip disarticulation, in fact it was a hindquarter disarticulation, which is called external hemipelvectomy. So when we deal with any pathological lesion, most important point is to identify the diagnosis first. So what are we dealing with? Which requires collaboration of your clinical inputs, the radiological inputs, and it has to be collaborated with our histological diagnosis. Once we have diagnosis in hand, then we move to the staging part, which tells us whether the tumor is localized or it has spread to the other part of the body, and then comes the final part, which is surgery. In fact, it is not always the surgery first. Based on the histology and the staging workup, patient may have to be started on chemotherapy or radiotherapy and then followed by surgery. So it's very important that we follow this protocol to avoid errors as I had shown. So when there is a lesion around the hip, two factors are very important. What is the age of the patient and the number of lesions. This is basically to rule out, are we dealing with a primary bone neoplasm or is it a metastatic status, because our treatment plan varies accordingly. Usually when the patient is younger, less than 40, our first diagnosis is for the primary bone neoplasm, like either locally aggressive tumors, benign tumors, or the malignant ones. But once it's more than 40 years of age, then we do not chase for the primary lesion. Rather, we look out for the other site of primary. The most common types are like metastatic tumors or the myeloma or the lymphoma. So finally we would reach to two types of tumor, either it's a primary or a metastatic tumor. And why is it important? Because when we see in the primary tumors, if it is a benign tumor, we can do intralesional surgeries like curettage, or when it is grade 3 type, when it has extraosseous component, then we have to do a resection. But when we talk about malignant tumors, it is always resection with wide margins. And in that, to achieve that, either you can do a limb salvage surgery or amputation. And it has been shown that the local recurrence rate is no different whether you do an amputation or a properly with principles done limb salvage. So the hip joint is a complex anatomy, we know, and when we talk this, the theme is THR in focus, so this is the routine hip replacement what we do. But when it comes to the tumor, it's not just the joint that we are going to replace. In fact, for especially I'm talking about sarcomas, we have to remove entire, most of the times the proximal part of the femur. And when the joint is involved, then it becomes even more bigger resection where part of the acetabulum has to be removed. And it's always extra-articular. You don't open the joint. You have to remove en bloc, acetabulum, as well as the part of the femur which is involved in sarcomas. So let's see with this example. For first, we'll see a benign tumor, locally aggressive. This was an elderly gentleman who presented with a lytic lesion. Our first suspicion was a metastatic disease, but it was ruled out with a PET scan, and this was the isolated lesion. So we did a biopsy. Normally we do a core biopsy with a true cut. You don't have to open it now, because when you do the final surgery, we need to remove the biopsy tract as well. And this turned out to be a giant cell tumor, so we decided to go ahead with the conventional THR. Mostly in this case, the patient was lucky that the tumor had involved only some part of the trochanteric, and it was mostly involving the neck part. So we protect the surrounding areas with hydrogen peroxide mops, and the conventional cut was taken. The process, what is important when we deal with benign tumors, is that we should do extended curettage, and that is done with the high speed burr. There are a role of adjuvant treatments, but the most important one is the use of high speed burr to prevent recurrence. And then you have to grossly visualize and confirm it fluoroscopic guidance that you are not leaving behind any tissue which is seen on the preoperative x-rays or the imaging. And so this patient underwent THR for the locally aggressive lesion of the proximal femur. Coming to the next part, which is the malignant tumors when they involve the hip. So this is challenging, and this is why it is challenging, because in routine orthopedics we are taught to go into the internal nervous plane, and we can go directly to the bone. We can do a periosteal or subperiosteal dissection, but when there is a sarcoma, we need to have a margin all around the tumor. That means we should never go and touch the bone. There is always a layer of normal anatomical tissue, which, suppose if it's proximal femur, maybe of vastus intermedius or lateralis, which is kept as a margin over the tumor, and then you remove it. Like this case is a young boy who had a lesion in the proximal femur, and we can see here there is periosteal reaction seen, and somebody had done a biopsy from the anterior aspect, and you can see there is a white hatch marks. So it's important that when we do a biopsy, we should always plan what is going to be our final surgery depending upon the radiological inputs. So when we do a proximal femur replacements, we go through a lateral approach, but in this case we had to modify our incision. Some part of planning is very important, and what are these parts? I would take some time on this slide because I will deal with all the points which are important in decision making. One is the histology. As I spoke, it's a benign tumor or a malignant. Makes a lot of difference. In fact, if it was a benign tumor, I would have just gone on the surface, probably would have curated it out and taken it out. But if it is a malignant tumor, I need to take a normal anatomical layer all around. Second, margin. So margin you have to see in multi dimensions, like you have to see the longitudinal margins, which is the bony involvement, and you need to have an anatomical landmark which you can correlate while you are on table. Like in this case, we took the measurement from the tip of trochanter, which we can correlate intraoperatively and measure the distance. You have to see the soft tissue extent, how much it is involving, what muscles are you going to keep around the tumor as a margin. Then comes the joint involvement. Like I said, if in this case the tumor is not involving the joint, in fact it is involving up to the proximal parts, a little below the greater trochanter. But if the joint was involved, then I had to remove this en bloc with the acetabular resection as well. You have to see whether the capsule is involved or not. It's very important, because if the capsule is involved, then you have to excise the capsule completely. It's more of an unstable joint, and you have to use a polypropylene mesh. That is what we use, and we call it mesh plasty. Of course, neurovascular bundle that you see, most of the times in the proximal femur tumors, we have to ligate the profunda femoris, and we preserve the main femoral vessels. The abductor attachment, the patients, the functional deficit usually comes because we have to detach the abductors as well as the iliopsoas. So it's very important to estimate whether the trochanter is involved or not. If we can take out with a margin, we can resect the trochanter and preserve it with trochanteric osteotomy. Patient has a very good function. They don't have so much of lurching. And similarly, the iliopsoas attachment, when we resect, we have to preserve it for further flexion of the hip joint. So in this case, like we see, we resected the proximal part of the femur, and in this case, since the boy was not walking, the muscles is very flabby. The rectus femoris is usually kept intact, and we see this, the margin, the layers of muscles which are left around, it is kept as a margin. This is the main neurovascular bundle. Here we had to ligate the profunda femoris. We trace it down till the resection of the bone. Here you can see this is the iliopsoas tendon, which is identified and it is sutured. The joint capsule, in this case it was preserved because the tumor was not reaching there, and the trochanteric osteotomy was done with the intact attachment of the abductors. So if we look at the prosthesis, normally these prostheses have special hooks or holes where you can reattach the muscles which are cut. Like here we have the attachments for the abductors, medially you have iliopsoas attachment, and just remember that it's not the muscles which get attached to the metal. Ultimately you need to have a strong hold all around, and you have to suture all the muscle properly all around so that the patient gets a good fibrosis and leads to good union and function. So this is the specimen which is seen here. You can see the skin margin which is removed with the biopsy tract, and you can see that bone is not exposed anywhere where the tumor was there, and there is entire normal muscle covering which is covering here. On the post-op x-rays we can see this is the trochanteric attachment, and this is the function of this patient. So these are massive resections, but still if done properly and with proper soft tissue supports, they have a good function and they can get back to their routine activities. Normally we follow the same protocols in the rehabilitation like we do in the hip, total hip replacements. Sometimes when the tumor around the hip joint extends quite distally, then you have to do a larger resection. Like in this case, this patient had Ewing sarcoma of the proximal femur. This you can see at the initial presentation. This is the soft tissue component, and there was a skip lesion in the distal femur. So this is after chemotherapy. We saw that the lesion has reduced in size, but when we plan our resections, it has to be based on the pre-chemo MRI or the X-rays. So what was the initial extent of the disease? You have to take all that as a margin. So in this case, we decided to do a total hip replacement where we replace right from the hip joint down to the knee joint. And this is the intraoperative findings where you have to preserve the entire attachment of the rectus because that is very important for further function. This is the trochanteric attachment which is preserved. The entire neurovascular bundle right from the hip to the knee is dissected out and is kept free. The sciatic nerve is very important to preserve it, and proximally here also we had just done the capsulorrhaphy, and because the joint capsule was not involved. So this is after total femur replacement. So in the immediate post-op period, patients are made to walk full weight bearing, and the routine rehab protocols are used where we avoid adduction, internal rotation and hip flexion beyond 60 degrees. And now this is the follow-up x-rays, follow-up clinical pictures. So this is almost after 1 year of surgery. So they have some lurch because of so much of muscles resection, and especially the abductor mechanism is gone, but still when we have reconstructed it well, they can have a good function. Just I'll touch upon the pediatric sarcomas around the hip because these are a challenge. Because of the small anatomical size, we don't have the prosthesis to fit into that, and even after resecting that part, there is sometimes very less residual bone left to accommodate our prosthetic stems, and they have further challenge of limb length discrepancy. So it's in adults we have the options of prosthetic reconstruction, but in children's, because of these, mostly they are offered amputation. So just a bit, it's not about the prosthesis, but it's about a biological method where we can do a limb salvage surgery in pediatric patients. Like this was a 6-year-old boy with osteosarcoma of the proximal femur, and he had a fracture and there was joint contamination. So there is something called rotation plasty. Many of you must have seen it or even done it, where we remove the part of the femur, whatever is affected by the disease, and then we put the lower limb, like if it's tibia, tibia can go into the hip, and we rotate the limb 180 degrees. And the height has to be adjusted in such a way that when the patient grows, the ankle should come at the opposite knee level. So here the ankle starts acting like knee joint, and that's why we rotate it 180 degree, because our normal function is the movements are behind. So in this case we planned for extra-articular resection. The entire acetabulum with the proximal femur was removed, and the lower limb is attached to the upper part of the body only with the main vessels and the sciatic nerve. And then this is the specimen, and this is after just few months. So the patient has to walk with a prosthesis, but it's much better than otherwise hindquarter disarticulation. So amputation is no more the surgery of choice in sarcomas. We are able to do limb salvage surgery in more than 90% cases. When it's benign tumor, we always try to preserve the joint with procedure like curettage. When it's malignant, we need to do a resection and with the wide margins. We always try to maintain the oncological clearance, which is most important, and next is our reconstruction modality. If we think that we are not able to get R0 resection, R0 means when we are not able to take entire disease, even not leave the microscopic residue, then only we should plan for limb salvage in sarcomas. And it's the multidisciplinary team which is the key to the success. So thank you very much for your attention.
A very good presentation, Dr. Vivek.
Thank you.
Being an oncologist, our concern is to hear the oncological safety. First, coming to benign part, like for a giant cell tumor, once you are resecting it off with a burr or doing an extended curettage, do you send the burr material for frozen or histopathology to confirm whether those, even the benign part, you may get recurrence afterwards? So to reduce the reference, would you like to know about the margins of the benign cavity as well?
So not in benign tumors, mostly before we plan a surgery, we confirm it with our radiological input as well as the biopsy, which is done beforehand. Sometimes many people ask me whether you plan your surgery and on table you send it for frozen to confirm the diagnosis. But we always frame the diagnosis before and then only we plan our surgery. So for benign tumors, I don't send for frozen, but yes, when I do malignant resections, I send for margins, not to confirm the diagnosis, but just to see that I am adequately safe away. I have a safe margin.
Yeah, the problem for frozen, in especially in the bony tumors, is to get a frozen, what you call dilution, is very difficult in frozen. So it's always better to rely on histopathology.
Totally agree with
Yeah.
you. In fact, when I was in Tata and the head of the pathology department, Dr. Jambekar was there. So she always used to say that you should never rely on frozen section for confirming the diagnosis. That is just to ascertain the margin, it works well. If you have a doubt, you can just do a biopsy and then wait for the final reports, and then only you should plan a definite surgery.
Yeah. The second question is, whenever there is a soft tissue component along with the bony, in a case of malignant tumor or on the hip joint, so do you have a practice of putting clips on the margin or not? Because our radiation people will be bang on to know the margins.
In soft tissue sarcomas, always when I anticipate radiotherapy. In bone tumors, like I said, I send for the frozen if I have doubt anywhere, just to see for the margins.
So, but you would put a clip there?
So in bone sarcomas, when we resect, we know exactly where the bone is cut above and below. So that gives us adequate margin. But in soft tissue sarcoma, I always put clips around.
Thank you, Dr. Vivek, for a very elaborate discussion. I would like to ask your experience about extracorporeal irradiation in your group of patients, if any.
Extracorporeal radiation, yes. So that is something which is, I won't say a very novel technique, but yeah, we are practicing it for over a decade. And extracorporeal radiation is something, while if we have sometimes a diaphyseal tumor, we resect it. Under sterile condition, we send it to the radiation department for radiation. I think they give 50 gray in a single fraction, and that is equivalent to, I think, more than 1,000 grays. And then we put it back while the patient is on table. Patient is intubated or is under anesthesia. So this is a very safe procedure, and it gives, this is called reimplantation of the tumor bone after sterilization. And nowadays we have other modalities of sterilization, like we have liquid nitrogen. It can also be done with autoclaving. But I think ECRT, the extracorporeal radiotherapy, is something which is being in practice for a very long time. It is very safe, and the data which we published from Tata Memorial when I was there was around 75 patients with a 5-year interval, and there were 2 local recurrences, but that was not in the bone per se where it was radiated, but was in the adjacent soft tissue. So we can say that it is oncologically a safe procedure and can be practiced very well.
Any questions from audience?
Thank you, Dr. Vivek. It was a wonderful talk, and may I request